In this week's drive, we get bitten by the banking at Long Pond, look at the explosion of demand for cars in China, lay down some smoking supermoto rubber, and put the Aquada to the channel crossing test. All this and more in this week's Drive. The ADAC 24-hour endurance race started at Germany's famous Nürburgring, featuring more than 200 cars from 28 different manufacturers, with 800 drivers from 23 nations. The number 42 BMW, driven by European touring car stars and brothers Dirk and Jörg Müller and long-distance expert Hans-Joachim Stuck, grabbed an early lead. Peter Dumbreck was an early retirement in the Opel he was sharing with Opel's motorsport director Volker Strajcek. The rain also helped Pedro Lamy to spin in front of his teammates, and both were passed by the number 44 Nissan driven by Roland Asch. Not far behind in third was the number 46 Porsche driven by Lucas Luhr and Marcel Thiemann from Monaco. Then the rain came down in sheets. This onboard view shows what the drivers had to contend with as spray completely hid cars ahead. The Abt Sportline Audi was one of many cars to be caught out by patchy rain on the track known locally as the Green Hell. The rain continued on into the night as the cars came in for driver changes. Crew members, not knowing when they'd have to repair a damaged car, grabbed some rest wherever and whenever they could. The rain slackened off as dawn came, and the number 42 BMW still held its lead. The team consisted of the Monaco-based Müller brothers, ex-Formula One driver Pedro Lamy, and Hans-Joachim Stuck, who was the first winner of the 24-hour race at the Nürburgring in 1970 and won again in 1998 in the first overall victory by a diesel-powered car. Amazingly, Lamy and Stuck also shared driving in the second-placed car with Boris Said and Duncan Heisman. Maintaining third was the Porsche of Lucas Luhr, 2 laps behind. The teams remained in the same positions as they crossed the finishing line, giving BMW a 1-2. The winners of the 30-second 24-hour race completed 143 laps of the 30-kilometer Nordschleife track, which has around 176 corners. The total distance covered by the cars was a staggering 24,358 kilometers. Round 14 of 36 in the NASCAR series, and each of the 3 turns at the tricky tri-oval track at Long Pond have a different degree of banking, providing a real challenge to drivers. The race got off to a clean start at one of the championship's most popular tracks. On lap 114, smoke poured out of Mark Martin's car after a blown engine. This brought out the 4th caution period of the race. 6 laps later, Bobby Labonte's car spewed smoke and sprayed oil on the track. Scott Wimmer and Sterling Marlin spun as a result. Despite this incident, Labonte finished in 3rd place. On lap 166, Rusty Wallace in the number 2 car barged into Michael Waltrip, which sent them both hard into the outside wall. After the incident, Waltrip was incensed, but Wallace later apologized and said his brakes had completely failed and he couldn't avoid Waltrip.
Rusty just had a huge run on Michael. I know Michael's in.
Better luck for Ryan Newman on the 183rd lap. Newman tapped Robbie Gordon and then he hit the outside wall, but was able to keep the motor running and get the car going again. This incident resulted in the 8th caution period of the day.
But I think what we'll see...
3 more coming.
4 laps were left when Matt Kenseth in a caution period tapped the back of the number 29 car of Kevin Harvick, which sent him spinning into the grass, but he got back out onto the track. The race would end in a caution period with victory for one of the young guns, Jimmy Johnson, his 9th career victory, all of them on superspeedways. It also tied him for the lead in victories this season with Dale Earnhardt. Both have 3 wins this season. The young driver controlled most of the Pocono 500 for his 2nd win in 3 weeks, 3rd this year and 9th of his career. He's led 820 miles in the last 3 races and has 2 more 2nd places in the last 5 events. Jeremy Mayfield, who had 2 of his 3 career victories at Pocono, finished 2nd. Bobby Labonte, who won in 1999, was 3rd.
Victory out in this triangle. A kiss from his fiancée.
Beijing recently hosted a biennial motor show that saw optimism from several world manufacturers, despite fears of a slowdown in China's economy and a drop-off in car sales.
Prices have been coming down for 3 years, and they probably 10% a year. Prices are going to continue coming down, certainly not 10% a year. They're going to normalize to other markets. We're very close to normalized pricing right now, as a matter of fact. We aren't concerned about price reduction. There is not a glut of overcapacity. We absolutely disagree with that. As a matter of fact, I would say the top 15 manufacturers are all running near 100% capacity utilization, and we're all looking at how to increase our capacity to keep up with demand, even with the slowing in May.
China's appetite for cars has prompted the multinationals to pump in $13 billion to produce 6 million cars annually over the coming years. This investment has prompted fears of lower profits, but for market leader Volkswagen, that doesn't seem to be a problem.
I cannot see any very big hard landing here in this Chinese market. But competition is growing rapidly. Price war is a realistic fact. A lot of new models and brands will come to the market. It means the situation for our automobile industry, for us as Volkswagen as a market leader, is not in this like last year. This is right.
The show featured brands from the super luxurious Lamborghini, Bentley and Rolls-Royce to less expensive offers from Toyota and GM. Despite sluggish sales in May, visitors at the exhibition say they still want to buy their dream cars.
I haven't been to any car shows before because of the crowds, but this time I'm planning to buy a new car. Here I've seen all the top brands and the latest designs, so I think it's great.
Some Chinese consumers have been holding back in anticipation of how prices would be affected by the launch of some 30 to 40 new cars at the show.
This exhibition might make people want to buy new cars after they see the many beautiful cars on display. But on the other hand, there's a big difference between the cars shown here and what people really want to buy.
The Chinese government is taking steps to cool an economy which grew 9.8% in the first quarter, reining in lending to sectors it sees as becoming overheated, such as real estate, steel and cement. This has had a knock-on effect on car sales as banks scale back lending to fund new car purchases. Most multinational firms are establishing factories in China, usually as joint ventures with local car makers. The latest is BMW, who opened a plant at Shenyang in the northeast.
This is a truly great day for the BMW Group, as well as for our partner Brilliance China Automotive Holdings. Today we have come together to celebrate the first fruits of our joint efforts, which started some years ago.
BMW and its Chinese partner each hold a 50% share. A total of 450 million euros is to be invested by 2005, and an annual production of around 30,000 BMW 3 and 5 Series vehicles is planned.
The opening of our joint venture plant here in Shenyang clearly shows the importance of the Chinese market. After a period where in the 90s we started our manufacturing operation in the United States, in South Carolina, where we basically had the first step of internationalizing BMW, we now have the second step with internationalizing towards Asia. Our strategy for the BMW Group consists of, on one hand, growth in existing markets with existing products, on the other hand, to expand into new markets with new products. And this happens here in China as probably the most dynamic market in Asia, maybe in the world, for the next decade or even more. And this is why it's so important that we have this ceremony here, and we want to grow here in China, and we want to sell premium products for the individual customers.
BMW's legendary quality control processes have been fully integrated into the new factory. This computer-controlled machine measures thousands of points to within fractions of a millimeter on randomly selected body shells off the production line to make sure that the stamped sections have been accurately welded together. Similarly, the bodies are visually checked for imperfections before they are painted. If some minor repairs or adjustments are needed, it's best done at this body-in-white stage. The paint shop at the new factory is state-of-the-art and uses environmentally friendly, solvent-free, water-based paint. The factory currently employs around 3,000 people, and the project has progressed at an impressive pace. BMW submitted a project proposal for a Sino-foreign joint venture in December 2001 with Brilliance China Automotive. The proposal was approved in July 2002 by the State Council of the People's Republic of China, and approval of a feasibility study was received from the National Development and Reform Commission in March 2003. Just days later, the joint venture contract was signed at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, and a business license was granted in May 2003. The brand new production facility was built in Shenyang, and the first BMW 3 Series came off the assembly line in September 2003. BMW has had a representative office in Beijing since 1994. In the 2003 financial year, the Chinese market ranked amongst BMW Group's top 10 sales markets for the first time. With a 75% increase to more than 27,000 cars, including more than 3,000 produced locally, China has moved up to 8th place.
We have to invest, and this is why we have this joint venture here with our partner Brilliance, and we want to go beyond, of course, the first phase of about 30,000 units, which is the installed capacity for that phase that we open here today. But in the long run, the Chinese market is going to be one of the major markets of the automotive world, all over the world, and this is why we want to be positioned here beyond the 30,000 that we have installed.
Over the next 5 years, the company is planning to increase its annual sales in the Asian markets from around 93,000 units in 2003 to 150,000 by 2008. In the first 4 months of this year, Chinese sales of BMW, Mini and Rolls-Royce were up by 41% over the same period last year to 8,500 cars. BMW Group's total sales in Asia in the first 4 months of 2004 amounted to 29,800 deliveries, an increase of 17% over the same period last year. Including the joint venture in Shenyang, BMW operates 24 production and assembly plants in 14 countries, including 6 in Asia, in Malaysia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand and China. At a ceremony at Beijing's Imperial Ancestors Temple, General Motors launched Cadillac, its luxury brand for China. Initially, all the cars will be imported from America, but the CTS and SRX will soon be assembled in Shanghai, making it the only facility outside the US to produce Cadillacs.
Well, we think the Cadillac brand, first of all, we have great historic equity here in the Chinese market. We're seen right from the very beginning of being at the very top of the market, the best of the best. That's the equity of the Cadillac brand here in China, which is wonderful for us. And what has led Cadillac's renaissance is that unlike a lot of our competition who wants to blend in, be understated, have that international jelly bean shape, we have dynamic, very bold, cutting-edge designs. This is a car that when you're in a Cadillac and you go somewhere, you've arrived.
The Cadillac XLR, the brand's flagship luxury roadster, will be available in China from early next year.
Chinese are actually pretty much like anybody else all around the world. There are very, very successful people here who have a feeling of self-esteem and status. They want to be able to express their success, and around the world people do that with cars. Many people do that with cars. Chinese are no different.
Established in 1997, Shanghai GM manufactures 4 Buick models. Among new facilities planned are the most advanced prototype laboratory in China, a virtual reality design studio that will be the first of its kind in China, a noise, vibration and harshness test lab, and a kinetics and compliance lab. The new facilities, to be completed within 2 years, will be built to the same standards adopted by GM's engineering and design operations elsewhere in the world.
We've got approval to spend $3 billion over the next 3 years to continue our expansion of operations in China.
GM currently has the broadest product lineup and the second highest market share, behind Volkswagen, among the global car makers operating in China.
The fact of the matter is that there's probably 300 million people in China who can afford cars today. Their standard of living is not at the level of fully developed countries, but it's moving very, very fast. And every year there's many, many more people entering the vehicle purchasing power position.
Shanghai GM will increase its annual production capacity from 200,000 to 450,000 vehicles to support new product plans.
I think for the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see continued significant growth in China's auto industry. And for GM to remain the world's #1 auto company, we have to be the best in China.
GM's capacity in China will reach 1.3 million units by 2007. A 10,000-strong crowd of fans gathered at Gallarate in Italy for the latest round of the Motocross World Championship. And for once, the action in the MX2 race overshadowed that in the MX1. Andrew McFarlane from Australia won both MX2 races convincingly, winning the first Grand Prix of his career, the third Australian in motocross history to accomplish the feat. The first race was the easier of the two, but there was plenty of action behind him. Italian Claudio Federici eventually proved the strongest of the chasing pack and held off series leader Ben Townley of New Zealand, who'd come from mid-pack. Townley came third, with Stephen Sword of Britain fourth. The second MX2 moto saw a big crash on the longest downhill. Stephen Sword was leading at the time, but his fall saw bike and rider go different ways. Sword escaped unharmed, but it was the end of his race. McFarlane went on to take the second moto with Antonio Cairoli and Alessio Chiodi second and third, making it a great day for Italian riders on home soil. The top four were all on Yamahas. Townley still leads the overall standings by a massive 46 points from Sword. In the Premier MX1 class, Belgian Kevin Strebos's lead in the opening race was never challenged and he won easily. The 18-year-old clocked an unbelievably quick first lap on slippery terrain and controlled the remainder of the race. Behind Strebos, however, it was a busy race. In the end, Stefan Everts held the upper hand over Michael Pichon of France and Belgium's Steve Ramon to finish runner-up. However, Everts won the second MX1 moto, the reigning champion extending his title lead to 102 points. With new bikes, new teams and a lot of changes during the winter, the first round of the third Supermoto World Championship kicked off at Spa-Francorchamps and looks promising. 24 riders entered the smaller 450cc S2 class, including 11 factory riders. The S2 race got off to a bunch start with at least one rider crashing out before the season got underway. Riders from Belgium, Romania, the Czech Republic, Germany, Austria, France, Italy and Spain will meet in the 10 races between now and the end of November. Supermoto originated in a combination of dirt and road racing on modified motocross bikes with road racing tyres. Whether it's a compromise or a combination of the best of both depends on whether you fall off. For the others, it was wheel-to-wheel stuff as France's Jérôme Giraudo on his number 2 Aprilia and Italy's Massimo Villarosa on a Honda battled for second place. The light and powerful, quick-steering dirt bikes with lots of ground clearance and grip make great short-track races. Way out in front, however, was Italy's David Gozzini on number 11 Husqvarna. He won from Villarosa with France's Fabrice Lecornet third on a KTM. The big race of the day, the S1 class, saw entries from 7 factories: Husqvarna, KTM, Aprilia, TM, Vertemati, Vor and Husaberg. With reigning world champion Eddie Seal, Gerald Delapine, the 2002 championship runner-up, and Federico Brondi all on the new 630s, Husqvarna fielded a formidable team. Seal found himself in a tussle with Italy's Mauro Moretto, but neatly boxed him off behind the barrier. This left Seal to chase the leaders, KTM's Ivan Lazzarini on bike 6 and fellow Italian Massimo Beltrami on number 9 Husaberg, until he slid off. KTM, the world champions in 2002, have a strong team with Lazzarini beside Boris Chambon. Lazzarini opened up a commanding lead which the others couldn't match, the Italian taking the checkered flag 5 seconds ahead of French teammate Chambon. Husqvarna's Belgian rider Delapine was just fractions of a second behind in third, and Husaberg's Beltrami was fourth. Billionaire British entrepreneur, airline magnate and incorrigible publicity seeker Sir Richard Branson claimed the latest in a series of travel-based records recently, crossing the English Channel by amphibious vehicle. 53-year-old Branson has undertaken a series of similar adventures over the years, breaking the transatlantic speedboat record in 1986, but failing in several attempts to make the first non-stop circumnavigation of the globe in a balloon. For his record attempt, Branson used a Gibbs Aquada, a revolutionary vehicle that combines the looks and on-road capability of a sports car with the ability to take to the water as a competent watercraft. Wearing a dinner jacket and bow tie, Sir Richard drove with Neil Jenkins, MD of Aquada. He bought the very first Aquada built in January, but the car used to set the record was modified by the factory to cope with the open sea. The flamboyant Virgin Group chairman slashed 4.5 hours off the previous amphibious channel crossing record set by two Frenchmen in the 1960s. Somewhat inevitably, before he set off, Branson was keen to make a connection with his business ventures, threatening to use a fleet of Aquadas to ferry Virgin Atlantic passengers to London's airports. Why not pick people up from the city in the Aquada, and if there's traffic on the roads, then they can just dip into the River Thames? That is something we'll be offering our business travellers quite soon, he said.
As well as the balloon, but no, slightly safer than ballooning maybe. But,
As the car drove up onto the sandy beach, its windscreen wiper still going, a very wet Richard Branson continued the Bond theme in a dinner jacket. Branson crossed the 22-mile stretch of water to Calais in France in a smooth run in the £75,000 Aquada sports car in 1 hour, 40 minutes and 6 seconds.
Well, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Virgin Atlantic that started 20 years ago today with one plane. And we're celebrating it in a rather sort of fun, bizarre way. We're trying to beat the record for the fastest crossing of the Channel by an aquacar, or by a car and a boat, all rolled into one, and this is it.
At the flick of a button, the three-seater Aquada's road wheels retract and its Hamilton jet engages, propelling the car through the water like a giant jet ski.
Well, the remarkable thing about the car is that on land it goes 130 miles an hour and drives brilliantly, but on the sea it goes over 30 miles an hour, and it's called an Aquada, and it actually runs just about as well on water as it does on land.
Two other amphibious crossings of the Channel are recorded, Ben Carlin in the 1950s and the Frenchman in the 1960s. Staying with Englishmen trying to tame the sea, a three-man crew is setting out to break the record for racing a powerboat round Britain. They'll use a revolutionary boat designed to average 120 kilometres an hour to beat the existing record of 31 hours.
Boat's much bigger than it was last year. Went round in a rib, which obviously, you get the elements right there in your face. I'm very confident that we'll be able to break this record.
They'll take an 1,800-kilometre route, and the crew are planning 5 fuel stops. The biggest worry is floating debris.
The mechanical side you can try and iron out from lots and lots of testing, but the running over something, last year we ran over something, we were dead in the water, engines off, we never heard it, we never saw it, but it broke a whole lot of teeth in the gear train at the back, and we had to run back under seriously reduced revs.
The shape of the boat is different from the usual powerboat. Twin tunnels under the hull help speed the boat through the water with minimum friction.
We're combining aerodynamics and hydrodynamics to create basically a more efficient hull, giving a greater top speed and using less fuel consumption. Also, the byproduct of that is we actually get a softer ride than you'd normally get in a conventional monohull.
The Blade Runner was built with only one aim, maximum speed. The crew are confident of breaking the all-out around Britain record. Now they must wait for a day of calm summer sea to stand the best chance of setting a new time of under 31 hours. So whether you're spinning in the rain, dancing with dragons, or just jumping to victory, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.